I say things like, let yourself be danced, to let just the spirit of life move through you and to just feel those billions or maybe trillions of cells and atoms dancing within you, and to help bring back that just incredible surrender to the miracle of life.
I'm Heather Grish, and this is the Wisdom of the Body podcast. This podcast explores the idea of body intelligence as the real key to learning the knowledge of life, or what we call Ayurveda in the ancient language of Sanskrit. We do that by connecting with today's creative leaders and experts who will help you listen to your body, trust your gut, and live in deeper harmony with nature. Come join me as we unlock the golden door to clear, direct perception and become very deep listeners. You can find the Wisdom of the Body podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also follow us by joining my email at heathergrish.com or on Instagram at heathergrish. I know you're going to love this podcast, so take a second right now to subscribe. I wanted to bring this guest on because I think she's an interesting teacher for healing the divine feminine in our time. Her work with dance, plants, and poetry is just what so many women feel like they're missing in this linear, static, developed world we live in. I'm hoping this podcast helps people tap into the wonderment and surprise of life, which happens through our bodies. My guest today is a fairy-like and yet super grounded creature who, as a friend, has always inspired me to connect with the wisdom of my own body, and I think she can help so many other women do that too. She'll probably make you want to take your shoes off and dance on the bare earth under the full moon. Perhaps your hips will sway. It will all be a big surprise. Welcome to the Wisdom of the Body podcast. Today, I'm here with Jacqui Lalita. Jacqui Lalita is an herbalist, a medicine woman, dancer, poet, and teacher devoted to helping women rekindle the flame of their wild feminine and deepen their connection to the natural world. In her Wild Wisdom School of Earth Medicine and Embodiment, she leads a 6-month herbalism apprenticeship. She leads belly dance trainings, dance and detox programs, and inspirational courses, all online. She's the author of 2 poetry books, Romancing the Divine and The Rebirth of Venus, and she considers the beauty of the living earth and the ancient stars to be her greatest muses. Jacqui, thank you for being here with us today.
My pleasure, Heather.
I'm so excited to have you today. I've been a big fan of your work for a long time, and I've known you for a long time. And I've known you in so many different forms, it seems, as well. And you're a person that's really multifaceted. You know, there are people that are able to do so many different things in life and somehow tie it all together, and you're one of them. And so could you tell me a little bit about the nature of your work?
Thank you so much. Yes, I mean, on the one hand, it is complex and creative, and on the other hand, it's completely simple and really about just helping to bring people back to what is right here before us in this present moment. The gift of life and just the miracle of our aliveness and the beauty that's shining forth from the heart of nature. And so I do this through my work as an herbalist, helping people to heal and feel good in their bodies and restore their health through plants, through the use of herbal allies and nutrition, and also through healing movements, ancient dance traditions from around the world, and meditation practices, and really helping women to rewild, as I call it, which is aligning ourselves back to the rhythms of nature and those natural cycles.
I love that you use that word. Yeah, that word rewilding. I love it so much. And I know it's a big passion of mine too. And it's kind of interesting that what is that about? Why do we need to rewild today?
I know, right? Because once upon a time, we lived in harmony close to the earth. We were connected to the stars above us and the cycles of the moon the procession of the stars, we had this innate intelligence that I feel is still very much alive inside of us. It's very much alive. There's a cellular memory. And yet, in the modern world, in the way that we have kind of constructed these walls around us and this hurried pace of go, 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 I think that a lot of us have lost some of our connection to that. And sometimes, we're going days, weeks, months, perhaps even years without feeling our bare feet upon the earth, or having that night where we just let ourselves lay under a blanket of stars. And so I really feel that part of the anecdote to a lot of what's going on in the world is to come back to the garden and come back to that heartbeat of nature. She's such a healer. When I say she, Mother Earth herself.
Yeah, and it feels to me that all of this is so important right now that people are already, because of the shifts that are taking place in the way everyone is living right now, that everyone is noticing that what you're talking about is more necessary. Everyone's finally realized that it's been a problem, that we've lost our connection with Mother Nature, that we don't go out into nature as much, that we have built these walls around us. And so, one of the reasons I wanted to bring you onto my podcast is because I think you're a really interesting teacher for people right now in this time where you've been really spending your most, if not all, of your adult life communing with nature, reconnecting with nature, and helping other women do that. And I'm assuming maybe some men as well.
Yeah. I mean, definitely all the men that I've been, in relationship with. But yeah, my work is not exclusive to women.
Yeah.
And this time is really giving us clear messages about what happens when we disconnect from the heartbeat of she who sustains us. And I think so many of us are feeling that call. I felt that call of the wild many years ago. And, we've known each other for so long. And so, I've always been very much into nature and the earth. My birthday's on Earth Day. And I remember just something in me resonating so deeply as a child, being in the woods and just feeling like everything was well when I was there. And so I did rekindle that on my journey. And the plant medicines, working with herbs and these beautiful plants out of the earth, letting them help fortify me and help build resiliency, and using them as my primary form of healing has really been a way of just fortifying the relationship to earth, even when I've been living in places like Los Angeles or just more urban environments, that I still always have that connection to her because I'm working with the plants that come forth from her. And then, of course, every time that I've been blessed to live far away from cities and just more wild, I've had chapters of living in open air homes in the jungle in Costa Rica and Kauai and Big Sur and just all of these really wild places. It's been such a gift because it's like the stillness and the ability to really listen just becomes so clear and amplified in those environments.
I feel like you are a gypsy, and I know that you kind of joke and call yourself that, but in a way, you've been living quite a nomadic life for a long time. I know that you kind of haven't settled in one place for an extended period of time, at least for a while. And that's another reason that I think that there's a lot to learn right now from you, because I know based on the work that I do that living a mobile life and traveling from place to place has its own set of challenges with it. And, obviously, like in Ayurveda, there's the whole idea of people having vata
Right.
imbalances and the whole travel factor in that, everybody notices that they get certain imbalances when they travel. And there's that sort of push pull between being mobile and being grounded. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, yeah, so I would imagine that you've discovered quite a lot about how to manage that kind of mobility, and that the herbs from the earth have been really super helpful for that.
Yes, absolutely. And, sometimes I say I'm a gypsy hermit because I really love home and I really love that grounded feeling. And I don't move about very quickly. There are some travelers. I have a friend who travels, he's been traveling the world, he's a YouTuber, and he's been traveling nonstop for 12 years. And I actually don't travel well like that. I like to really take my time and sink in and be in a place long enough, to feel the frequency and to really just appreciate the unique energetics of different places. So within that as well, I have developed this inner knowing, what I know to be true for myself, that home is where the heart is. And so for whatever reason, just that ability to acclimate wherever I go. And as long as there's nature, as long as there's trees and herbs and some fresh air, I know I'll be okay. It's like, okay, I got this. Here she is. Living Earth is here. I definitely long for home, and the vision is to have that land and to have that garden. And it's just been part of my journey for whatever reason to, live in different places, experience different places. I generally try to stay somewhere, at least a few months. I mean, sometimes a year. The past couple of months, I have been a bit on the road traveling and just exploring really the possibility of where I might want to make roots. But yeah, I think it is important, whether we're in one place or we're moving about, to have some kind of practice that grounds us. And maybe it's herbal allies, maybe it's a way of, eating, getting your roots. But I think it is so important, no matter where we are, whether in motion or in one place, to really fortify that groundedness. And for me, it comes from getting out into nature every day. I try to always get out at sunset, and especially in the early morning, and just taking those moments, of like full presence, whatever that looks like. Meditation looks different for each of us. So in that way, I've been able to keep myself pretty grounded, and also just having that routine with work and being of service and making sure that my life is really, that I can be a beneficial presence.
Yeah, that's the morning routine piece is so important for people. And I know I kind of laughed that I called you a nomad or gypsy, but there are a lot of people who live nomadically these days. There's a whole
Oh, yeah.
category of, worker called a digital nomad. You're probably familiar, and you probably even have quite a few friends in that category, I would imagine, just
Yeah.
based on being mobile. You tend to come across people who are other travelers who like to be mobile. And in that mobility, like you're saying, having all of these practices to deeply root you. But it sounds like also that this desire of, rooting down somewhere is still within you. Because I know that you have moved around partially because of your involvement in the dance world.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about how dance has been in your life.
Well, I had always been a dancer as a child. And then when I discovered belly dance in college in Miami, it was just this instant love affair. And I was never thinking, oh, I'm going to do something with this. I just loved the way that it felt in my body. And I loved what it was enlivening within me. And it was a very powerful period for me. I was celibate for 2.5 years, and I was just really cultivating what I now know is Shakti, that primordial feminine life force energy. And so it was extremely powerful. And I just kept following that thread, just following it. And then I started teaching because my teacher asked me to. And I never imagined that it was going to take me all around the world. But, it's like, expect the unexpected with life. And so I knew I wanted to go to Egypt, to the motherland of belly dancing. And so I think it was either during college or at graduation, I, sold some furniture and took off to Egypt. And there, that first trip there, it was like some kind of ancient codes, ancient remembrance. I was so moved by what was being awakened within me, and then just fell so in love with culture, and made friends in Cairo from all different places. And I just knew, like, okay, I always kind of knew I was going to be a traveler, but that really opened up something very powerful. And I kept going back to Egypt. I started going to Turkey because I was studying Sufi dance. And then I started getting invitations as my journey of teaching and dance deepened. And I really had something to share with women. I started getting invitations to all these different places. And so, yeah, it really did take me around the world. And it's funny because even before COVID, a few years ago, I really started tuning in with just the sustainability and how I didn't want to keep traveling so much for so long, and I started moving my work online and really focusing on teaching dance online and having these transformational programs online. And I'm so glad I did, because look at where we are now. And I think there is this really incredible way that we can all come together from different parts of the world because of the online, what this is opening up. So, yeah, but the real vision for me right now is definitely home and having this beautiful garden, animals, and all that. I think it's so beautiful to also ground in somewhere.
Yeah. And also your dance and what you share with women, because I know you work as an herbalist and I know that there's an aim for the reconnection. Like there are reasons that people need to reconnect with
Yes.
the earth. There are reasons that each individual comes to be healed. And for you and your experience with dance, I'd like to hear also about what you've seen with your clients as well. But for your experience with dance to start, was that a healing experience for you?
Oh, one of the biggest, definitely one of the biggest, because it's just a way of peeling back so many layers of conditioning and shame. And really, just for me, it's been as close to that feeling of freedom, that feeling of like a bird soaring, as I've been able to get in this human body. So I think also it's helped take me out of some of the more linear ways of being that Western culture kind of brought me up in. And it's helped me really, so many of the movements are these spirals and these figure eights and these undulations and these incredibly feminine ways of moving. And so in unearthing that within my body, it also inevitably ended up unearthing a lot of creativity and creative energy that I feel like it's inspired my writing and just the way that I create my work and even the way I walk. It's really interesting. And I see this also with, the women that I dance with and that I share this with. And there's certain themes that have come up over the past 20 years of me teaching this dance over and over. And I have just come to be in like continuous awe of the healing power of dance. And some of those things are, it helps give a woman a sense of self-acceptance that no matter what her body type is, finding that beauty and feeling beautiful within herself. And I feel like this is so important right now because all the nonsense that says like, oh, you are beautiful if you look like do da 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 da. And the reality is it's not true. Beauty is coming from within. And so when a woman feels beautiful, when her body feels beautiful doing this dance and she cuts past these blocks and these old patterns, it's what is experienced as this really incredible liberation. And all the stories that I'm not a dancer, I can't dance. I always grew up being a dancer. So I knew, okay, I'm a dancer. But a lot of women who come are like, I can't dance. There's that old saying that says, if you can speak, you can sing. If you can walk, you can dance. And so when women start tapping in, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm dancing. I'm actually doing this. It's very empowering. So there's so many layers of healing, even the way that I carry myself and my posture and my personal power. You know, it works so much, belly dancing works so much with the sacral chakra. And that is home to our personal power and our creative life force and our sensuality. And so activating that is a really good thing.
Yeah, I recall some of what you have described with your experience of dance are some things that when I became a yoga teacher that I also experienced. But there is something different about dance than yoga. And I think sometimes when a person first starts doing yoga and they just move a little bit differently than they're used to moving, that somehow that does something, but that taking it even further from those poses that are static, that are repeated and trying to look like the form of the teacher and things like that, that there's something different that gets learned when you move your body the way a dancer moves her body. And part of what we're trying to do here with this podcast is to help people tune into their own body's intelligence more.
Yeah.
So could you talk about what are some of the things that you've seen women learn by doing dance practices?
I love that. And yeah, dance is so complementary for yoga. Most of my closest friends are all yoga teachers. And the place that I guest teach the most like trainings and places that I'm a special guest are yoga trainings. And it really is so complementary. And it really does help to just give that permission to get out of the poses and really explore the more circular motions. And I think that women resonate so much with this dance because there is just this really inherent desire to want to be free in our bodies, to want to feel freedom in our bodies. And often we might not know how to feel free. We know that how we feel in our body isn't exactly how we'd like to feel, but we're not totally sure how to get there. And yoga can be such a great doorway in for liberating the body. And then dance just opens up a whole other door. It's a different door, just a different way in. And so I do see so often, I've been teaching a lot online and an online program for women where we were dancing 22 straight days. And it was so beautiful. These breakthroughs are, things like, oh my gosh, this back pain that I've been having, or this holding pattern, or this way of being kind of like scrunched up or stiff or tense has suddenly just released itself. So there's just really this incredible divine intelligence within dance that really, I don't know how it works, but it gives this inner liberation that is so beautiful. And it really helps us to fall in love with being in a body when there's so many times where it's like, being in a body is painful or hard. And then this reminder through dance that, oh my gosh, being in a body is delicious and amazing and sensuous and fun. And yeah, we just come together. I mean, I had women in the last program, it was like from their early 20s to a couple of almost 80. And just this feeling that, no matter what your size, no matter where you are in your life, it's like this is an invitation for everyone to just come home to feeling free within your bones.
If you want to create a more receptive body, free from toxins, inflammation, and metabolic issues, either for yourself or because you're considering trying to get pregnant, would it be crazy for you to explore booking a virtual Ayurvedic consultation with me? There's probably never been a more perfect time to do it. Every day you wait matters. So if you're ready to get your body back in balance, I'll give you a 30-day plan to get you started. Go to heathergrish.com to book a consultation. That's Heather, GRZYCH.com. I think this is so important because every experience we have as a human is coming through our body. All of our sensory perceptions, all of our experience, everything has come through our body. So you got to make friends with it. And it's interesting because the same way that you could take a yoga class and learn from a teacher and mimic the poses of that teacher, or take a dance class and mimic the moves of that teacher, there's a difference between the mimicking and the movement that arises. And I would suspect that because you're doing a fair amount of work with women to reconnect with the feminine, that you're helping women identify that piece of the intuitive movement.
Absolutely. Yeah, I bring that piece into all of my work for sure. I think it's nice to give some structure and some technique so that we can open and expand and unlock places in the body that may have maybe stuck or stagnant. And then there's always a time and a portion, whether it's in class or a journey together, where it's like time to be set free and time to explore on your own what is arising. And I say things like, let yourself be danced, to let just the spirit of life move through you and to just feel those billions or maybe trillions of cells and atoms dancing within you, and to help bring back that just incredible surrender to the miracle of life. And it's really beautiful. That's always my favorite part of classes.
Yeah, there's a quote that I put in my book, The Ayurvedic Guide to Fertility, a quote from Ramajodi Vernon. I think you might know who she was, one of the founders of yoga journals, a yoga teacher.
Oh, yeah.
She's I don't know exactly how old she is, but she's up there. She's been around a long time on the planet. And one of the quotes I have in my book from her is, "You are the instrument in the hands of the divine."
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And it really feels like dance sort of lets you see that there is something bigger going on.
Absolutely. And the great Alice Walker said something along the lines of, furious times require furious dancing.
Ooh,
So,
I like that. Tell me more about that. How would a person dance furiously?
well, it doesn't necessarily have to be angry. I think it just is meaning really strong, strong times as this, when things just seem like, what is happening? This is when we can work the energy through. I know during quarantine, when this was all going down, my dance was like, oh, it's just that place to bring me home, to recenter, to recompose. I think she meant something along that lines of like the dance, through this dance, through the ability to move it out, to shake it out, to give it back to the earth. We come back to our center. And then from our center, from that place of homeostasis, we can then best serve. We can then be part of the healing. When we're being all spun out, it's not always our most effective place to operate from.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know the herbal work also is such a big part of what you do, and the connection to the earth and almost the levitation that we receive away from the earth from that we can achieve through dance, that they're certainly interconnected, the idea of dancing and then reconnecting with the earth through the herbal work, but they're almost two different ends of a spectrum in some way, because with the air element of dance and movement and things like that, and the earth element of the plants, that there's such a great breadth of qualities for people to explore with that.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, it's like dance can also be incredibly grounding. And there's movements and dance traditions that are so earthy and draw your energy down towards the earth. And then there's herbs that are really for the crown and activating our more ethereal connection. And so, yeah, it's also interwoven. For a long time, I kind of kept them a bit separate. I was doing herbalism work on, one part of my day, and then dance work. And they just have naturally interwoven themselves. And now it's like, I just see how that's all meant to come together in that way, where we are in the celebration of our body and movement, the medicine of movement, and we are also working with the medicines from the earth.
One of the things that I find fascinating for a healing journey that a lot of people experience, that I certainly experienced in my life, is that at some point there's a sense that you have more than one self, that you have maybe two selves or even more than one self, and that you have to do this or you have to do that.
Right. We're so multi-dynamic.
Yeah, and it really feels like the real healing happens for a person once they see that all of those selves are not them and that
Yeah.
they are something else other than those selves. And so to me, that's kind of coming around to one of the other things I wanted to talk about, which is the idea of surprise, and being surprised. And you had mentioned, I was watching a talk that you had given a few years ago on YouTube. It was an interview. I can't remember the woman's name, but you were talking about how you initially found dance. And I think that the way you had described it was that a friend actually had recommended that you take a dance class when you were, I think, in college, or it was a certain kind of dance.
Yeah, I was already a dancer. I was doing like hip hop, and then I had this gym schedule for my university on the fridge, and she had come down to stay with me for a moment, and she was like, "Hey, you have belly dancing at your university." And she just kind of said it like, "I don't know what that even is." And then a friend was there, and he said, "Oh my God, you have to do that. You have to do that." It was when I think Shakira was first coming around with all of her belly dance moves. And I was like, "I don't know what this is, but I'm going to give it a shot." So yeah.
So it was almost this, because it's sort of similar. The reason that stuck out to me is because that's also how I started to teach yoga. One day, someone suggested, "Hey, you should go try this yoga class. You really like exercise."
Oh my God, amazing.
Yeah. And so I've always viewed that as a really big gift because it wasn't something that I was seeking. It was something that just showed up that was exactly what I needed in my life. And it was absolutely wonderful. And it took me really on so many other paths, like it sounds like belly dancing has done for you. And, I recall you've had a belly dance DVD that you've been on before
Yeah,
that was sold in stores. Is that still sold in stores?
I think it is. I'm not part of any of the distribution, but I think it was a big DVD company. And for a while, I think it was in like the Targets and Walmarts and Best Buys, but I have no idea what's happening now. I don't know if people even use DVDs anymore. Sometimes I do still get messages from people, in all different parts of the world. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I found your DVD and it's helping me with whatever it is," And so that's really sweet. I think like it's funny when you're saying about finding yoga and the way that I found dance. And it's been this way for so many things. Like I found cacao before it became what it is with the whole superfoods. And I started making raw chocolate. This is like 20 years ago. And it just sort of found me in this way through a meeting with David Wolfe. And now I'm also a chocolatier. And I found astrology because I was teaching dance on St. John Island. And there was an astrologer there. And these things just, I think when we are on our path and open, life has a way, serendipity has a way of just helping us to actualize our dharma and our soul mission.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I really want to help people do listening to this podcast is to hear about people's stories like you, but also to hear what it's like to be in your body because we all experience the world through our individual bodies. And obviously, our bodies are so complex. There's so many parts to our bodies, there's so many channels in our bodies. But if you had a favorite body part, whether it's on you or someone else that you like to study, what's like one of the most fascinating body parts to you?
Oh my goodness, what a question. Let me think about this for a minute. I've always just taken it like the totality of the whole body. Oh goodness, let's see. I mean, I feel like every bit of it is just like, what? How? Who dreamt this? I mean, just even human hands and what these hands are capable. I'm going to go with that one because think about all that hands do. You hold your baby with your hands. You can weave your art and all the paintings that have been born from human hands, all of the beautiful meals that are created, the gardens that are planted, the pets that are petted. There's like, it's endless the way that we touch each other. I find all of it so fascinating and just the way that the whole body works together as this incredible ecosystem. That's part of like when I'm doing work with somebody to heal, and generally you pull that thread and it's like a spider web. The whole thing is all so interconnected. And so I love getting deep down into the root of things and just seeing like, okay, it may look like it's a knee issue, but let's go deeper in. So yeah, so I don't know, but I love embodiment. I'm a Taurus. I'm so about the sensual embodiment and the celebration of that. And it's part of my gratitude practice in the morning is like, okay, I have strong feet to stand on and to dance on, and not taking any of it for granted.
I love that term sensual embodiment, and I'd love for you to elaborate more for the listeners what that actually means.
I feel like our sensuality is our innate ability to take life in through the senses, being able to see through these eyes, being able to hear beautiful music, being able to taste the amazing food that we make, being able to inhale a rose in full bloom, being able to feel a hand on us. It's like the presence that we bring to our senses is, to me, the sensual experience. It doesn't have to have anything to do with sexuality per se. It's just when our senses are enlivened and we are in that full moment appreciation and awe for that. That is, to me, sensuous embodiment. I love helping people connect into that because there's so many little gifts and gratitude and grace and all of that just woven into our ability to presence ourselves into whatever sensorial experience we're having in each moment.
Isn't it so interesting that when we say that word sensual, that we automatically go to, no, I don't mean sexual.
Right. I know. And the shame around it. And there is a lot of cultural shame. And so having to unravel some of those threads and give permission to actually enjoy being in the body and enjoy the pleasures of life and not have to feel guilty about it.
So, in terms of those pleasures of life, and I know that you love plants and I know that you work a lot with herbs, do you have a favorite herb that's like your best friend?
I have so many best friends. I think my apprentices would laugh because I'm always like, oh, this one's my favorite, or this one's my favorite. There are so many. I'm looking at an entire array of herbal tinctures that are sitting in front of me right now. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm a huge fan of medicinal mushrooms. I'm a huge reishi fan. I love adaptogenic herbs, herbs that help build our resiliency to stress, things like tulsi and ashwagandha and eleuthero. I love nervines that help bring support to our nervous system, milky oats, lemon balm. There's just so many.
That's so cute. You know, every time I think about you, I picture you outside with a tree somewhere.
I love
I
that.
do. I really do picture you outside in nature.
Oh, that's beautiful. I do spend a lot of the day inside working, but I definitely try to get outside a lot. And I love that so many friends are like, whenever I go under the full moon, I think of you. Or whenever I see a wolf, it's like I have all these wild kind of associations. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, it's especially great, I think, because there are so many people who are missing that right now. And, you know, giving people permission to do something a little bit crazy.
Mm.
I mean, especially right now. I mean, going outside, who says that going outside and standing under the moon or, you know, going outside with your bare feet and hiking through the woods? Maybe we are crazy for thinking that is crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely don't think it's crazy. It's totally normal to me. I have like, it's perfectly normal to me to make herbal tinctures and put them out under the moon and call it my moon water, drink it the next day. Like, to me, and if anybody else thinks it's crazy, it's actually not my responsibility at all. I'm only responsible for my own relationship with self. And so I don't worry too much about that. I've always had that bit of eccentric. It's funny, my mom just found my journal, or yeah, a little diary from 1989. I was 11 years old. And apparently I was writing in this journal about looking for a boy with an unusual charm and not wanting anybody ordinary. And I was like, oh my gosh, 30 years later, here we are. It's always been about being a little offbeat.
Wow, you really sound like you've set the bar really high for any man who might want to be your
Oh
partner.
my gosh. Maybe that's why I'm still single.
Really, the most unusual,
Most
extraordinary.
unusual charm.
Oh my God. Well, Jacqui, I know you're also a poet. And when we first reconnected years ago, it was at a tea house in San Francisco. That tea house is no longer there. So, that particular tea house, you were there reading from, I believe, your latest book of poetry.
Yes, that was so sweet, and you showed up at my poetry reading. I think it was like a book signing. That's true.
Yeah. And so that was, after not seeing each other for
Oh my gosh,
probably
decade.
many years, right? It was, yeah, a very long time. And then we saw each other that time. And, you know, that idea of being a poet and connecting with your emotional body as a poet and connecting with your emotional body as an herbalist and connecting with your emotional body as a dancer. Those are such wonderful gifts to be able to give people today because there's so much intellectualism
Mhm.
going on
Yeah.
in our lives and so many thoughts that what are some of the breakthroughs that you've seen people have in your work with women?
I think being able to slow down that monkey mind and being able to discern the stories and the habitual patterns of the mind, and really being able to just find that spaciousness in the thoughts, that coming into the present moment with just a simple joy more and more, and also the self regenerative ability of the body. So, with that, I mean, when somebody is going through healing or they're having an issue, maybe something acute, maybe something chronic, and they start looking for other ways to heal it, maybe to really heal it deep down to the roots. It's so beautiful to see people access their own. On the one hand, it's like I'm giving these remedies and, protocols, dietary things, but really it is just turning someone back to their own regenerative abilities of their body. And there's so much healing in that. There's so much grace and empowerment in somebody seeing, like, oh my gosh, my body can heal. This is incredible how resilient. And sometimes when things are really crazy in the world, we can sometimes lose touch with the fact that we are such resilient beings by nature. The very nature of being human is to be resilient. It is within our DNA to weather the storms and to keep on going, keep climbing that mountain. And so it's really beautiful to see people on their healing journeys, to be a loving guide and mentor on a healing journey with someone, cheering them on, helping find just the right herbs that can support them, and then seeing, like, oh my gosh, that access to my own resiliency. Like, this is who I am. I have overcome this thing. So, yeah, it's just beautiful.
Well, Jacqui, this has been so wonderful. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about where people can find you and how they can learn more about your work.
Sure. Well, I have a website, and my website is also the same as my Instagram. It's just my name, Jacqui Lalita, JacquiLalita. And I do have a fun new program coming up that's a sacral sensual awakening and digestive healing. So we're working with the sacral chakra and all these things that you and I have been talking about, Heather, with just accessing our creative life force energy, accessing a deeper connection to our sensual energy and our feminine Shakti. So, yes, I've loved talking to you, and I love friendships that carry on across a lifetime. It's so beautiful. Thank you for the work that you're doing too.
Thank you so much for being here, Jacqui. Thank you for sharing the intelligence of your own body with the listeners. And I'm sure you'll have some people contacting you.
Amazing. And I can't wait to read your book.
Great. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in with us today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I really want to hear your feedback. To learn more about my work, visit heathergrish.com. That's Heather, GRZYCH.com. And meet me here next time on The Wisdom of the Body.